of a DNA spiral of gold and silver. It's like the two branches, the gold and silver kind of galactic. The light code thing that I drew.
That's pretty fucking cool. I have to
Thank you.
say. Very cool.
Hi, everyone.
So I was talking to Morgan after the last show, and all day long I've been feeling something. And I, so we connect day and night, but so we had a pretty incredible day yesterday. And I go to bed at 5. I wake up at 8:30, and my mind's going, "You need to go back to sleep," and my body says, "No, no, we're not going to sleep." So, and then, and I just had like this certain feeling all day, like post expansion, right? But it's different, like very, very different, very, very undescribable. And so then after the last show, and then talking to Morgan, all of a sudden I could feel it coming in. So then I thought, oh well, Julie's coming on. So it's because our shows have a community vibe as well as everything else, as yeah. So anyway,
It's so sweet. It's sweet that our Soulogy community here that comes to listen to our chats. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Todd. It's so.
Of course, you're.
I was getting very verklempt many times during the day today, like of gratitude of like coming through. I was like, oh, I get to talk to Todd today.
I was having gratitude today too.
I was like, I'm gonna cry during the whole show. Like Todd won't mind.
No, I won't care.
Happy cry.
I'll cry. I'll probably start crying. But yeah, it's just wow, it's such an amazing, like we've come out on the other side of whatever the hell we went through. But that October 10th, 11th, and 12th, I guess what? We would have been talking about that last time we got on, which was it right before that happened?
Yeah.
I think it was right before because, yeah, I think it was. Because we shifted. It would have been
really
2 weeks.
Did shift for sure. And then the full moon on the 20th seemed like it sort of unlocked this whole new cycle that we're moving into now, which we could talk about tonight. Do you know we have an eclipse corridor coming up? Just because we haven't had an intense enough year.
I don't know.
You get some eclipses.
Yeah. But it feels like we're into this now. Like really other times you go like, yeah, everything's changed, but I know we're into this thing now. And I know this just from my own experience, looking at what's happening, what Morgan and I share, some information she shares with me through her sessions. This whole octahedron thing has been mind blowing. I've seen it, the effect of it on people, myself, and the grid. I don't even see sacred geometry. I'm waking up seeing sacred geometry. But yeah, so I'm really excited about if we have an eclipse corridor, November
like,
1.
Bring it.
Let's go, man. I think we have accelerated the timeline beyond. I was watching Matthias De Stefano, and I was rewatching a couple episodes, and he was talking about 2024 and 2026. Of course, these were made, I believe, in 2020 and 2021. And I'm going, oh, hell no. We've moved this thing up, like again, but this time, big time, right? So anyway, it's good to see you. I love you. And Soulogy Cosmologist is on the air. So what's happened? Tell us what the hell's going on. Or whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, I was telling Todd, currently where I am, we have a big rainstorm, windstorm situation happening. So if you hear things blowing or knocking about the building I'm in, it's all just part of the flow.
We have that
one
here.
Of two. We have the second storm is coming here. The one that just rocketed the West Coast will be here Friday. So
is that right?
Exciting times, moving across the continent.
And that one came through here and spawned in tornadoes in 3 states. I mean, I've got wind. I got doors opening.
Yep.
I've got all kinds of stuff happening, you know.
Well, it's interesting. We could talk about so we're in an eclipse. So the total solar eclipses that are crossing like an X across the continent, 2017 was the first one. And the second one is in 2024. So you mentioned 2024. I don't know who you're watching, but that's the bookend eclipse. Those are the total solar eclipses that affect us most here in North America because the totality path goes through. That's not what's happening this month, but November. I was looking today at the November alignments.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, there's a lot of things here, and I know people get like in their skulls about it. I'm going to pop in a link because I put it up so people don't have to remember things. I put it on my website. So let me cut and paste for a second.
Where did you put it? Are you going to put it under put it under the messages? Yeah, where it says type a message.
Can I type a message on Restream?
Yeah, not where it says private chat. Where it says type a message. You see the people's comments. Okay, so underneath it, there's an R and a drop down, and it says type a message. You don't see that?
No, probably that's for you because you're the host.
Send me the link.
All right.
And I'll put it up on all the platforms.
How's that? Did that go to you?
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Cool. We're so technologically advanced. So November. So we're obviously, this does feel like here we had such a glorious October weather-wise, and it felt like we were still in the summer vibe. And on Sunday, we had a really nice, warm, super sunny, super potent day here. And it's interesting because it has the feels of here in New England in autumn, we get to this peak of foliage, which is like so activating. And it's so beautiful. It's so glorious. And then it's like, we know like it's going to be over soon. It's like really teaches us to be like in the moment and fluid with things, because it's like the most beautiful it could be. And then we're going to have these like windstorms and then the trees then they're bare and everything's dark and cold and gray. So we get the palpable, like that turning in towards the solstice is really palpable up here in the Northeast, across the country too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I had that on Sunday, just like tons of light pouring in and tons of sun. But I felt like a squirrel running around gathering my light code nuts. I was like, I gotta get all the sunlight and get it all in. And then it tipped into, so we're really kind of turned the corner astronomically towards the November, and November is that cross quarter time between equinox and solstice, where we start to turn in the north hemisphere anyway, into the darker days. And in early November, like basically the moon is doing this cool thing from November 1st. So the new moon is November 4th, where it's dark, right? But then the crescent moon goes with Spica. We talked about Spica a couple times, like shows ago. Right. So Spica and Mercury and the crescent moon, right before it goes new, are together in the sky November 3rd. And then we have a new moon November 4th. And then the moon kind of moves, and I wrote them down because I knew I'd never remember. It moves, it hits with Spica, the star in Virgo, on November 2nd. And then it's right next to Mercury on November 3rd. It's next to the sun as a new moon on November 4th. And then it goes to Antares. Antares is that red-orange star in Scorpio.
Yeah, Antares.
I'm just going to read them all down. And then it pings Venus. It goes next to Venus November 7th. Then next to Pluto November 9th. Then Saturn on November 10th. Then the moon goes next to Jupiter November 11th. And then Neptune November 13th.
Good God.
It goes to Cetus is the whale constellation, or the sea monster constellation that's just under Pisces. So it's not technically on the ecliptic, and I don't think you hear about it that much. Like you hear about, oh, the moon's in Pisces, but that part of that quadrant of the sky is called the water zone of the sky, Aquarius, Pisces, Aradnus, Cetus. So it, like along the whale's back, the moon kind of skims across on November 14th, 15th, 16th. Then it goes next to Uranus on November 17th. And then right after it goes by, it's moving into Taurus and right into your zone of the sky, right by Aldebaran. So on November 19th is the lunar eclipse.
A lunar eclipse.
And that's visible from a big swath of the east, meaning like Australia, the Asia, and then I said the east, the far east, and then Hawaii and a chunk of North America. It's a partial lunar eclipse. And from where I am on the East Coast, it's like a 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. kind of thing. So it's in the night sky. So we'll be able to see it partial. But that on the 19th of November. But that I was just noticing how the moon is just like going, like pinging all these planets. So it's sort of
what
like,
is that? What do you think what does that translate to? What do you think? Is it going to be like a hell? Is it going to be like a hell week? Like
no, I don't. I never like. I never portend.
I know you don't.
Gates of hell, Todd.
but it actually it doesn't feel like, because the other one last month was like what, 6 planets in retrograde and whatever, all that crazy stuff. But it feels like we're expanding. Like,
well, the moon, the moon, to me, the moon. So last month it did it too. I think some of us noticed it in the sky. The moon went right next to Saturn. The moon went next to Jupiter. So when the moon is in the sky, the moon is almost like a laser pointer, if you will. You know how like when you're a teacher and you have like your chalkboard or whatever, now the whiteboards, and you can use a pointer to point out like, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this.
So it's like highlighting that energy.
Yeah. So the moon is a really visible thing for us to see. And then when it's near, because we don't see Pluto or Neptune or Uranus with our naked eye, meaning you'd have to have a telescope. But when it's there in the sky, it's kind of just like this highlight marker, if you will. It just like takes up station next to it.
Yeah.
And there is a way that celestial bodies, when they're next to each other in the sky, they do this cross-coding thing. Kind of like when we're next, when we're right now code exchanging, you and I, even though we're not in the same room, but like anytime you go near someone to have a conversation. So I really think of it like a planetary conversation.
That's wild.
And the moon, but because it's moving into eclipse time, it's like it will go and the moon just has a kind of like a crystalline, more of like a silvery white, that kind of like, the way it highlights is different than the sun, right?
Right.
The sun has more of that like glaring fire thing. The moon has more of that reflective quality, especially when it's moving into an eclipse. So an eclipse gives us really opportunity to go into like the underbelly of things, like what's under the surface. So in that way, you said like, is it going to be an intense week?
That's a good thing though.
Yeah, sure. But we want like, I always relish that, like, because I want to, I mean, not that it's not without intensity, but it like clears out some of the goo, right? So the lunar eclipse on the 19th is a thing. But then whenever we have a lunar eclipses and solar eclipses come together, right? So every time that we have a solar eclipse, we'll have a lunar eclipse either 2 weeks before it or 2 weeks after it because of the alignment of how the sun, moon, and earth. So on December 4th, there is a total solar eclipse.
Are you serious?
Yes. And the total solar eclipse is blanketing and buffeting the South Pole, basically. It's going over Antarctica. I think the only like place
that means the moon. That means the moon totally goes in front of the sun.
Yeah.
Total solar eclipse.
Total solar eclipse. The moon blocks the sun from us. Yes.
Wow. And it's a total solar eclipse.
But the only place where people live is like Patagonia, the tip of South America.
Yeah.
But I want to point out, this is the cool part for those of us that pay attention to polarity and North Pole, South Pole. And there's a lot of Earth magnetic stuff going on. So if you remember back into June 10th was our last solar eclipse. And that was a really big one.
Yeah.
And that solar eclipse went up over the North Pole. So the path of, so basically an eclipse is just really an alignment of where the disk of the moon blocks the disk of the sun. And it's only a very narrow place on Earth that sees a solar eclipse. Like the path is very small. Whereas a lunar eclipse, because it's the Earth that gets in the between the moon and the sun,
so
a bigger swath of the planet can see it. Does that make sense?
But we had that one in 2019. We were in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And that was a total solar eclipse because the moon turned like red. Remember that? That was in.
So that's probably a total lunar eclipse
Lunar
or
eclipse?
A blood moon.
It was a blood moon.
Yeah.
It was crazy. That was a crazy time. It sounds like we're we're amping up here.
So the December 4th. So the thing I wanted to point out is that the June 10th eclipse, solar eclipse that happened last summer or winter, if you're in the southern hemisphere, that happened in June, was a total North Pole event.
Yeah.
It went up and over Greenland and up and over. And now we're having a complete South Pole path. And that's big significance to me because we've been really working on polarity and merging duality into oneness this year. So it's like the bookend in more ways than one. But I found that really interesting that they're north and south of each other. So that's going to be a thing.
That it feels like poles are flipping to me, and this kind of symbolizes it.
Yes, but it's so the Earth acts like a big bar magnet, if you will, and the North Pole is the North Pole of the Earth is actually the southern pole of a magnetic sphere. So it's an inward thing. The South Pole is more of like the outward. So we're talking about toroidal.
Oh, like a toroidal.
Yeah. So that's like magnetic, it goes in through the North Pole and out and through and around and out.
I got you. So one goes in, one goes out. How weird is that? That makes sense though.
Yeah.
It's the same principles of magnetics. It's just not a sphere, or what we think of, like we think of magnets. You put them together, two horseshoes.
Yeah. Right? There is a way that the body of the Earth works like a pole magnet, if you will, like a bar magnet, north and south. So just these eclipses so whatever came up for you, anyone who's like, whatever you worked on during the June eclipse, you will probably get the flip side of it now in December.
All right, let me think about this. I just got back from Sedona. I was told to be here by the eclipse. I got here on the 9th.
I remember we had talked about it. That was a kind of a big day for you. I think you said you got
it was huge. It was well, obviously I was processing being here alone, but there was there was a lot of focus on I think I want to say like kind of bringing into balance, addictions, more consciousness in what's being ingested or whatever brought into the body.
So that matches how it showed to me. Showed to me as I call it the Liberty eclipse.
Liberty eclipse.
Like I had an experience in one of my Dhara crystals where like I had a little figure of the Statue of Liberty come through so that was a sunrise eclipse. And I was out with some crystals at the sunrise but I also saw pictures. It was very visible in New York City, but it had a liberty quality, like freedom code unlocked.
Okay. So then
that makes sense with the addiction thing or like getting in line with what keeps you held in place or in a pattern.
Right. Liberating free. Yeah. Okay. I got you. So that would mean December would be the opposite, which would be, well, I mean, that's what you're kind of saying, right? I mean, it's on the other pole. So, I mean, no, I don't think this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But maybe that's when the distortion presented as restrictions and mandate and such, maybe that's when it climaxes. Because it's
That's
going to fall.
interesting.
It's just a matter of.
Yeah. I've been as you say that, what's good for me, and it's just part of the seasonal thing, but I've been getting very much like that squirrel gathering nuts. I was like, just make sure, you have enough like flour and like sugar, like just like prepare to have like a fun, like quiet sort of family cozy holiday cycle. Like prepare for me and my family. I was like, just make sure you have stuff on hand so that you can have a nice cozy at home couple of months. I'm not saying like things are going to shut down. I just mean that's the like oh, I better cook more. I want to like, it happens this time of year anyway because it gets darker and warmer, colder. But I was like, oh, just like make nourishing foods, get some squashes, make some soups, get some, do all that like fall winter prep.
So Morgan just said slavery, convict, authority programs, perhaps. So that would make sense to me because if it's the opposite, because how like when COVID started and everybody had to stay home, so everybody went into self-introspection, right? Like there was an energy of that. So like when I'm listening to you about your family, like your outlook on it, it's almost like what you're saying, yes, but also like a turtle, like pulling its limbs in and its head in the shell. And like I can just kind of see the opposite being that distortion, like almost like being presented and nobody's watching, right? And everybody's
I love that.
Everybody's
like pull into your own sphere of reality that you can create the joy, the magic, the fun, the adventure.
Yeah.
Can I use I know I'm not one to go political, but there's just the one like little example that I think could be tangible for folks.
Yeah.
And there's like this, and I don't watch news or any of that stuff, but there's this like thing going around of like, oh, like, the whole supply thing. And like, we're not like all the boats parked off the California coast and like, that whole like, how it shows up here in the suburbs is like, you better buy your Christmas gifts now. Cause it's like, no, like actually maybe it's a really good thing that we're not like able to consume lots of crap from China and plastic parts. And like, can we just focus on like all that old way of like over consuming and all the capitalism and all that stuff? Like we all know it has to crumble, right? So can it be even put out? Are you going to let someone else tell you that makes things bad for you this winter? Or are you going to decide that you're going to have your best winter ever? And you're going to like make your own, like, let's get back to like what brings joy and what brings like coziness and what brings.
I go back to old school.
Yeah.
Like you said, flour, sugar, like.
Not just like sugar, like, but, just like things like, we can make things fun without,
like, okay, well, what would you do for Christmas 150 years ago in a cabin? And you know what I mean? Like,
we'd be making maple syrup snow cones, like Little House on the Prairie style,
But this makes sense too. Okay, so you have the let's say that if it's the opposite, then the distortion that's being presented through these restrictive programs or whatever gets louder. But everyone's a turtle. They pull their limbs and their head in the shell with their loved ones, and then they make do with what they have, old school, right?
Yeah.
And the commercialism, because I hadn't thought about that part. That part's going to crumble too, right?
So yes, I'm going to say I was reading a few comments. That's going to crumble. Richard said back to basics. Yes, Richard. I agree, like that kind of thing. And then, of course, our friend Hung is like, retail therapy brings me joy. Great. So retail therapy to your local store, like like go to your, like, let's all, that whole shop local thing is really true of like, we are in this process of living what some people call new earth, or like, how are we going to move forward as a society in a way that's more balanced, that's more respectful of the planetary resource, that's more respectful of the other humans and animals and plants. Like, we don't want to get back to what was a couple of years ago. Like what we're watching is the dismantling and the crumbling away of all the old structures and the outdated structures. We are living in that time, which is certainly intense, right? But then it's like, how do we recreate the new as we go?
Yeah.
It's like a individual
and
game.
and that respect and consideration for self, right? Like that's something that's been happening since this thing hit last year. What about any thoughts on the mama bear energy? Like I know you kind of introduced us to that, and then of course other people were actually using that term. I don't know if they
I
watched.
know.
Did
That
you
was
see that?
cool. I
Yeah,
did.
and but like, because I mean, when you introduced us to it, and I don't remember when that was. That was what,
Well, that's
August,
where we actually started this whole, because I was talking about Virgo, the constellation Virgo,
right?
and the star. So the constellation Virgo is one of the largest sections of the sky. So we're
Okay.
kind of still, we're just on the tail end of Virgo, meaning the sun's finally moved, not finally, but is out of Virgo. But I equated she's often shown as like a lady standing there with a stalk of wheat and like a book. Like I equated her to like
The Statue of
Lady
Liberty.
Liberty. Yeah, yeah. I was using that
So
as a
was that
stand-in.
that was in
But that
June?
Spica was that mama bear. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, late August, early
August. That's
September.
what I thought. I thought it was
Yeah.
August. So, but in your own, and then you had the parallel of your own experience that you openly shared with us, which was you didn't have to do, but that was pretty powerful. And I'm talking about getting reassimilated into the school system.
Yeah. Yeah.
You talked about jabs. You talked about respecting everybody's choices and stuff. And any further movement on the mama bear energy? I mean, are you picking up on anything? I mean, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, I've been able to you're talking about the turtle pulling back into the shell.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like for me and my family, we're in like a good stasis. It's not stasis isn't the right word. We like move through that cycle where I was having to do a lot of advocating and like standing up. We've come to some mutual agreements, the institutions that my family's a part of, and in general. So things are operating smoothly right now. That's better than stasis. And it is this whole, we create our realities with our words and with our choices. And it seems that in the bubble, in the sphere that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
like things are really good, things are flowing, things are working well. So I'm hoping that's how I'm not hoping, I'm coding that out there so that
I
continues for
got you.
me and mine.
I got you. Well, I mean, because you represent the mama bear energy, so I'm listening. And
Yeah.
so something I'm picking up on is, and I saw a couple examples. One would be Mateus De Stefano, uh, Journey to Remembering. It's a 3-part series before initiation. It's about his whole story. It's very interesting, very, very full of code. But one of the things he talks about, which I think we've all been familiar with as we've expanded our ability to integrate further polarities, dark and light, right? Particularly when dealing with the dark, what we would call dark. And that is, and then the other one that kind of, other than just the normal course of life, like with me or with me and Morgan or whatever I do, would be Patricia Cota Robles, who will be back in December. And she just did a vlog and I don't know the exact title, but it was something like affecting change through unity. So this is where I'm going with it. Like listening to Mateus talk about dealing with entities or energy, or let's just call it dark energies or polar opposite energies. His approach in his story is a lot like what we've all learning to do, which is to work with the energy from a unified, uh, mutual objective, meaning that both sides want to elevate and expand. So, and I listened to a little bit of Patricia's uh, vlog, and it was mostly like a not a meditation, but a activation, or I don't know what you call it. But anyway, it was the same type of energy. So my question is, in this, in the from the time that you shared that with us to what you just explained, being in this situation where things are evolving, there must be some level of unification, compromise. Something has to be going on. It can't be imbalanced, I wouldn't think. Or is it? I mean, is it? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that energy look like? How did this get moved to a higher ground without somebody or some group going ape shit and throwing a wrench in it?
In my particular personal circumstance?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Just careful communication, respectful communication. And so that when you talk like in the polarity thing, I see a lot of people, I mean, we all see this, right? A lot of people that might make a choice, one choice or the other choice, but they get so entrenched in like, oh, my choice is the correct choice and your choice is like that. In that, as soon as you take up there's so much of this, like, oh, the dark agenda and this is happening and they're going to force this. And like, if against that, like once you take up the sword or shield against the other,
yeah,
then you're in that polarity. You're in the dance, you're in the game, you're in the battle.
Exactly.
So when you talked about the turtle pulling into the shell, it's like, that's what I've really just been working on is like this sphere, this room that I'm in, the places that I take myself and my family, like we have the freedoms we need in this sphere.
Right.
So it's like
you're
the drain of what might happen in the future or what this is going to come and that's going to come. Like I can't say that I'm free of those like little mental like lines, but I like as soon as I see one happening, I'm like, okay, that's not what's happening now in the room that I'm in. Things are fine. You just really have to like work it out in your own field.
No, that makes sense. You're focusing on your bubble, your sphere, and that of those who you are most connected with, like your family, right? Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. That feels right. Like that feels like the turtle in the shell, which is a sphere, actually. So now the other thing I would be curious about is in these interactions that you're involved with, what does the patriarchal energy look like and what does the mama bear energy look like? Does that make sense? And I'm not just talking about you as a mama bear energy. I'm talking about any of the other that you might have seen or even as a whole. Like, do you see it as the polarity of the mama bear and the patriarchal? And and what do you see? Are you seeing concessions? Are you seeing, like, if you look at the patriarchal on a large scale, it's very distorted and people are like going, they're actually waking more people up than if they were behaving, I guess, you know what I mean? Because they're like going, this is so stupid. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, what are you observing? Are you seeing the mama bear energy?
I am observing like the mama bears like crossing the lines and like loving each other sister to sister anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't have friends that ask me what choice I've made. It's just like it hasn't come up in my face. I don't take myself to places where that question will come up too, so it's like a co-creation, but I've experienced for myself either respectful communication about it, agree to disagree and not like doesn't change people's choice, but I see people like reaching across the aisle isn't the right word, but like across the lines. And so I don't see it in the like patriarchy, matriarchy side of things because, if I just use the school, for example, even the people that are in power places, that's mostly like a female run institution. You know what I mean? At least in most, the teachers, like people are in power in female bodies. It doesn't mean they don't represent the patriarchy, but there's just like a way that the sisterhood, is transcending or, we're
it's bigger
making sure it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
And it's like local and local.
But I think it's significant that the educational system is is populated primarily with women. I mean, look at the light worker groups for the
But
last
not
10
that some of
years.
those women, I'm not saying that all the women
No,
in
no,
that
no.
the
I
institutions
got you
are
on
like
that. I'm just saying,
reaching across,
but
but
as a like there's an innate frequency. Like when I listen to you describe that, whatever that is bigger than whatever issues there are. Like that's what it sounds like to me. Like there's, like you said, they're coming from across the other side of the aisle, and so to speak, energetically shaking hands, hugging, solidifying, unifying, being above the fray, but still, you know what I mean? That's what it feels like, what you're saying, which is cool.
yeah, it's really just like creating your own reality in the way that you want it. That's what I feel like. And like keep yourself in the circles or the spheres of places where your soul's going to respect it. I'm trying to figure out how to put this in words. It's like you can be in the like in that Vesica Pisces or in the like the opposite like polarity, like pushing against each other of like, no, even like if I wanted to say the right to make a choice, medical choice for myself or my children, there's a way that the sphere that you're in, you can just like, of course I would have that right. Just like dissolve all the constructs that would even be called into question.
Yeah, I like that. You know what else is interesting too, now that you brought that up? The medical industry. I mean, I'm talking about numbers, whether it's an executive or whether it's a janitor or a nurse or technician, or it's also going to be more populated by women. That's a pretty interesting thing. I've never thought about this. So you have a couple of the 4 or 5 main facets of our reality, our realm, and these two, which are very prominent, are populated when you count the individuals, regardless of their position or stature. Their majority is the mama bear. You know, is that sisterhood thing you're talking about? Women. That's interesting to think about from an energetic standpoint.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's like reminding that, like, I won't even say it. Just reminding everyone that we are truly in this together, and that other people might make different choices than you, and that's okay. Yeah. Either way, you know, like all along the way.
That's the thing. That's the turtle in the shell, though, right? I mean, like, you could just take the choice of a medical choice off the table and just say anything else, like religion or what you eat, you know, as an individual or as a family. Like it's like stay in your own lane. You don't ask. They don't ask you if you've got a medical procedure or not. You don't ask them what they eat. You know, I mean, even in these light worker communities, we have this, hey, you better be a vegan or else, or you better not smoke, or you better not do this or that. You know what I mean? So like there's something
it's the
about
dissolving of like judgment. It's the dissolving of projection and judgment. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's that. So if we're talking about the polarities of anything, that are like two opposite ends of a pole, or like poles in different directions, no matter what it is, right? Like what is the resolution of duality is the oneness and the merged, and just being like truly comfortable to do what works for your soul and let other people do that too.
But so what I'm saying is like, so women, you're saying that the sisterhood thing, right? So they're obviously more connected. Women's intuition, right? Okay, but
I don't know.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, if okay, let me say it another way. There's a reason that the light worker groups for the last 10 years have been the vast majority, and I know the numbers are getting better, but the vast majority represented by women. There's a reason for that. There's also, we've talked about this before, there's this language that they speak that men don't have. Like women just know things with each other. There's certain protocol. There's certain, like, you don't date somebody's ex-boyfriend. Like, when I heard that, I'm like, what is that? But women actually, for the most part, they stick to that. It's crazy. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're experiencing in a small, in your bubble, your shared bubble with others that overlaps with others in say that school system, and you're seeing that the sisterhood, they're not asking each other. They're what did you say earlier? Like a unifying.
Well, I can't say that's. I mean, I'm not going to like sugarcoat it and say that that's true across the board. It's probably true that I self-select, and I know the people to hang out with, and the people should. I just like that's how I am like creating my own reality. I'm not going to say there aren't aren't people in female bodies who are doing it really differently. And I don't know. I don't do the like male female thing in quite that same way, because I have friends across I mean, I have a lot of like male friends who are jiving, or like who get it in the same way too. But I know what you're saying, that there's a way.
I'm just saying as a whole. I'm not trying to say, I'm just saying collectively. Like if you have the proportionate representation in light worker groups that you do, and you already have kind of a matching one in those two pillars of, let's say, the patriarchal, then it would only make sense. And this I take back to the mama bear conversation we had in whatever it was, July or August, because of that switch that goes off. When you were talking, it was like you were talking about the bear, and other animals. I told you about my friend that got attacked by a mama raccoon, just because she had babies, right? So it's like this switch goes off to me, like when I got that download from you, and it was like when the mama bear makes her mind up, it's all done. I put up a meme in Soulogy yesterday, and it's a picture. It's just a crazy picture, and it says everybody's a gangster. They all act gangster until mama comes.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, so if they're more inclined to flip that switch, and there already is a high, let's just say a solid majority in whatever arena we're talking about, it would only make sense that they would be the catalyst for that change.
So I'm going to flip it back to the stars, because what you said just reminded me of that. So we were talking about Arcturus.
Yeah.
So Arcturus is the guardian bear, but it's also like that star or that entity, that being is called the guardian of the poles. So this is how we're bringing
it back. The poles,
because it's where the constellation is in the sky is near the Big Dipper and near the North Star. So it's like the celestial poles. That Arcturus, I'll have to go look that up. And
I read that post.
Arcturus is the guardian of the poles. So that, like, we're talking about when we're talking about the Virgo constellation, it's like if you picture that constellation as a standing female body, because that's how it's pictured, is Arcturus is the right arm or hand, and Spica is the left. Oh. So Arcturus and Spica are right across from each other. And then if we go into that Lady Liberty simile, that the Arcturus is like the torch, or like the guardian, the bear, like that holding up the symbol of light.
Okay.
And the Spica is the book of records, or the Akash, the book of.
God, this is crazy. The way you can actually see the energy from these celestial bodies. This is really weird. I mean, it's taken me a long time to catch on to what
it's like embodying. So it's interesting. This is a separate. So for a long time, I kind of shunned the word shaman, not because I didn't enjoy the shaman, but I felt like it was a cultural appropriation thing. But I think everybody knows what a shaman is, right? Like a shaman is someone who like sees into the other worlds or sees into the other realms and like does so. But lately I've wanted to reclaim that term for myself because I have done shamanic journeying and training and practices. But then as I was reading the etymology of the word shaman, it's really from a European thing. It's not like an indigenous, it's like a German word actually. And so the shamans were the ones that could see between the physical world and the world of spirit. So either the word galactic shaman or celestial shaman, like working those things, or there's a way that it's shown to me. There's like a celestial shamanism and a terrestrial or earth-based shamanism. And like we're doing that so that really like the work that I do is that bridging that celestial and terrestrial lines. Like even for something, I don't even say simple, but the galactic shaman or the celestial shaman will take something like I see swans a bunch, and swans have always felt like so potent for me. Like I see them and they just send me like lots of messages and many years ago, I was like, there's something about the swans. And I know it's like, the message they're sending me is this thing. And you go look it up in shamans. But I was like, there's something more to it. So then I was like, oh, wait a minute. The constellations, like swan is a cygnus, the sky, the constellation. So like a celestial shaman or galactic shaman will use the animal encounters. And we work with some of that totem energy too, but it's also celestial.
Right.
So it's like you like look to, so now if I see an animal, like one pops through or like a heron or this or a turkey vulture.
Uh-oh. I think she's in the middle of a storm. Huh. She said her internet might go out. Well, we made it 46 minutes. Yeah, this stuff is really interesting. She's really bringing something to the table here. I'm glad to be collaborating. Because some people look at the stars.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell who was frozen. Am I frozen?
I was having an ad lib there. Yeah, your signal's extremely low. It's still very low.
Okay. I told Todd before that we've got this huge cyclone storm, flood, whatever. It's not a hurricane, but something like that. Some big rainstorm. Is it better now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So I was talking about using the animal totems. Like we all know are familiar with using animal totems and like looking up the spiritual meaning or the shamanic meaning of them. What I've been doing for the last many years is then also looking at the celestial or the constellation meaning of them. So if I see a swan, it will like guide me to like look up that constellation. Oh, is there a swan constellation? And there's a lot of the constellations are for animals, birds, people. Like they're all.
Well, I read your post today, and it was about who's that guy you follow? James something. What's his name?
Tiburon.
Yeah, Tiburon. And so, but it was talking about Sirius, how Sirius is much more than it's just two stars. But one of the things it said was that the horse comes from Arcturus, right?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm getting like between the lines here is you're talking about a celestial shaman, for instance, and a terrestrial shaman, and it like there's a bridge, and so like the same with the stars and the animal, or us in a star, or
Well, that's really what the bridging. And so I want to answer. Julie Pershin asked a question about Arcturus. Before I said that Spica is the record keeper.
Yeah.
I was saying that Arcturus is in the hand that the torch is in. So I said torch, Julie. Yeah. Anyway, but to go back to that's terrestrial. Yes, we are making it. That's the bridging is the thing. Right?
So there's
but there's a way of embodying like the when we're in the whole Lion's Gate is like that Leo time when the sun's moving through all the gates of the Leo constellation. It's like we get that as embodiment. And the Virgo thing has been, I'm noticing that the sun, like I've been having a lot of stuff just in my legs. Like I know it's regridding and it's upgrades for me, but like knees and ankles, feet. I was like, oh, there's the sun's down towards the feet of the Virgo constellation.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. Are you getting feet and leg stuff
I'm
too?
getting knees, and even can't get relief from it. You know,
knees
like,
and ankles, knees and ankles, knees and ankles has been my.
Mine's kind of backed off a little bit now, but
yeah.
But even if I put CBD topical, you know, what is it, anti-inflammatory, whatever, doesn't do a whole lot. Still.
Well, when I was looking at the Eclipse thing today, so I had been putting that. You know, we're in the process of receiving upgrades all the time, and sometimes we don't figure out what it is until months later or years later. But when I was looking at the eclipses today to share that, and I saw that the eclipse is coming in the South Pole, and I was like, oh, it's the lower, you know, if we think of like this is the North Pole of my body and my feet are the South Pole of my body, I was like, oh, I'm just getting the whole like southern hemisphere of my body is getting upgrades right now.
Yeah. God, I've been getting downloaded like crazy this whole show. Like, I almost thought I was going to throw up. But I don't know what's going on. Do you have any idea?
What's going on in the world or for you?
No, I mean, not me. Are you picking up on anything?
The download? Yeah, that's
Are you picking up on anything right now? Because I mean, I'm serious. I just feel something's going on. I can't pick up on it. I'm too effed up at the moment.
Yeah. I feel like we're swirling a lot of like this conversation, any conversation. It's like we're in a delicate way trying to tackle some hot button issues.
I don't know.
And so there's a lot of like
it definitely doesn't feel three-dimensional to me.
Friction in the field, but there's also oh, that's what they're pinging me to mention that. Galactic Center. So I wrote it down because this is, I know it's like it's a lot harder to answer these questions on the spot than people might think. So it's good. But one of the alignments is pinging the Galactic Center. That's what, when you asked me, what are you getting? I was like, oh, it's Galactic Center or the Great Central Sun. Oh, okay.
What does that mean?
What is the Galactic Center?
No. So that's what you're getting. That we're
no. When you're like, we're getting into like source code material, like pulling away the things that keep us from directly connecting to source.
I see what you mean.
The Galactic Centers, but that's the alignment. That's just when you asked, I asked. And so on November 7th, I did say that a lot of the moon is going to ping a lot of the planets. Venus and the moon are conjuncting, and where they're conjuncting in the sky is in the Sagittarius constellation and right by where the Galactic Center is in the sky. Oh, all right.
That'll be a good time for me then.
I heard another one. Yes, that's your the other thing. What time? We've been on for an hour.
Yeah.
Do we have time to talk about this? Yes, because it's answering what you're talking about.
Yeah, we got.
So I've been really working a lot with cetaceans, whales, dolphins, and one of the things I also wanted to talk about on here is, so galactic. So do you know what an active galactic nucleus is? Like, so we have galaxies.
Hell no, I don't know what that is.
So there's some galaxies that the core of their galaxy is doing a thing that we don't quite understand, that sends these jets out up and down. So a quasar or a blazar or a pulsar, those are all what they're the AGN, active galactic nucleus.
Okay.
So in Virgo, the constellation that we're talking about right now, there's a whole bunch of things in the sky where the Virgo constellation is. There are a lot of galaxies that we see. You know, obviously they're not in the Virgo constellation. They're millions of light years away, but they're in that sector of the sky. And we didn't really develop radio telescopes until the 50s or the 60s. So we didn't really know that these things were there. But there are things that aren't emitting light codes. They emit radio waves.
Okay.
That's, I feel like, kind of what we're talking about. Cetus, that constellation, and Virgo, and some of the most active radio emitters are in those constellations.
to include their um, Earth aspect,
So
the physical,
sometimes these, like the galaxies will be, they send out these huge jets of plasma up and down. And if we don't know about it unless it's pointed towards Earth, like the only ones that we can see or that we receive information from are the ones that are pointed at us. So when you ask, like, what are you getting? What's coming? I was like, I feel like this is like you're tuning into some of the radio frequencies or radio waves.
Yeah.
Coming.
I don't know. I don't know. It just feels. I don't know. I hesitate to mention part of what I feel, but.
And there might be, there's like, that's like the high vibe of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we have these conversations, and since you said hesitate to mention, there's like,
no, it's not.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's not a low vibe. I just don't want to muddy the waters.
Okay.
Keep it. Well, because, part of what I'm picking up on, like when we work together and really in general, like I feel a big shift, like a big shift in Soulogy. Morgan and I both do. What that's looking like is like everything happening in the moment, right? Like it's just happening. But definitely, like if this is like, it's definitely, and I'm looking at the metrics, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the let's say the 3D stuff, and I'm looking at the multidimensional. This is not just a conversation, and I mean at a much. I'm saying if we said that a month ago, that's in one context, but now that means something totally different. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, because we're broadcasting. That's sort of why I brought in those, like the whales and these nucleus, active galactic nucleus, like this radio. It is a broadcast network. So if we're broadcasting freedom codes, peace codes, love and light codes,
badass codes, ground control.
Yeah, exactly. Like the galactic. I saw you put a post up about that you had a dream about being in the Galactic Council, and
that was crazy. Yeah,
that's a thing. Like if people, like all of it, we are the Galactic Councils.
Yeah, that was a couple of weeks ago. That was a crazy. But that whole period from the 10th through what, maybe the 20th, 21st. I don't know. It was just like, but it was beautiful. Pain is the dark love. That's all it is. And it was incredible. There's been some incredible, looking around and expansions. I mean, it's just, I feel like we're in this thing now. So, but anyway, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Let's talk. We want to talk we'll talk logistics. This 7 o'clock, it's like way past my bedtime this late at night.
Is it really?
I'm like, my brain is much more turned on in the afternoon. Or
well, if you want to change the time, I'm cool with that.
Okay. Yeah. That would work for my brain cells a little bit better, and I'd be more articulate. Probably.
Just send me whatever. Look at the thing and send me whatever.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everybody. It's such a pleasure. And I do feel like when you talk, I don't know what you and Morgan are picking up on, because obviously you're much more in the heart of things, but that shift of
what?
I feel like you have been planting the seeds for community for a long, long time. And the community is blossoming and evolving and becoming more family more now than ever. That's how it seems like to me from out here.
Well, this is crazy. Maybe this is sort of the connectivity, because right before the show started, I knew I had to eat something. I had to get off the camera with her because I said, I got to eat. Something's wrong. Not wrong. I just felt, and so I was thinking about, I don't know what the context was, but I was thinking about, it was almost like maybe it was my higher self. Somebody was talking to me and saying, and I can't remember the exact context of the question, but I was going, the answer, and I don't think it was from me, I think it was from my aspect, saying, you were told to go start this group with this name. You were homeless and so on. And then it came in like, how crazy is that kind of thing, right? And then it came in, and then you meet this woman who whatever, like in 2008, like long before I met her, had put up an appeal to the universe to have a platform just like this. Like, so I was being shown, not that I don't know that though, right? But I was being shown how, on one hand, how crazy that is. But on the other hand, I was being shown, like in no uncertain terms, how aligning these things are, right? So for you to say that, I think that must be part of it. I don't know. It just feels like an elevation that we're all experiencing here.
For sure.
Yeah.
I feel it too.
Well,
thanks so much for having us all and hosting us all.
It's not me. This is our community. We were just the original caretakers, but it's very clear to me now, even especially after this month, that this is what does Marina say? Marina says Soulogy's built by the community for the community. So it's built by the community. It's just, and that will physicalize. I'm very certain of that. So yeah, I don't even know what just happened in the last hour. But I love you, and give those kids a hug.
Thank you, everybody.
For me, and
we were very galactic-y, orbity. There's a lot coming through, and that when you say like that thing of eat, like when you download a lot of codes and light codes, like you do these shows, and then you like your physical body sometimes really needs to like eat a whole bunch of food to like ground it, manifest it, like, and you got to follow those impulses.
That's for sure. I love you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you. Just send me whatever you need to send me.
Okay.
Love you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you tomorrow. I think we got 2 or 3 shows, and I was planning on maybe doing something tonight interactively, but I'm not certain, but don't be surprised. All right. Bye-bye.